old Bob. How's your weekend been?
It's been pretty good.
Not that
The
your
weather's been
weekend and
nice.
week are any different now.
I mean, they all kind of blend together, but it was a nice weekend.
Blend together, you do the same thing.
I mean,
You
yeah, but
jobless bum.
hey, I've got a job, kind of. We're waiting on it. We're in the middle of a thing right now.
A thing.
A thing. But no, it's been a good weekend. Had some burritos tonight. Me and my dad cooked up.
I had the last of my spaghetti.
Oh no, now you're spaghetti-less.
That's okay. Oh, gotta stretch.
Are you a little tuckered out?
Yeah, even though I didn't really do anything today.
I slept until like 1, so
Jesus.
yeah, I never sleep in that late. I looked at the clock. I'm like, oh, how'd that one happen?
I think I woke up at 10 and then dozed on and off until 11. And then I don't think I got out of bed till noon. So. But that's what
Look at us being
I
productive members.
I just enjoy waking up and then, not having to get out of bed immediately. That's a good feeling.
Just enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sundays are for the boys and boys' beds.
Exactly.
Like Saturdays are for dads and dads' cars.
Oh man. My brain's actually having to process thoughts now, so it's having to take in more oxygen.
You have to like start the crank.
Yeah. It's like that scene from SpongeBob where everybody's trying to flip through filing cabinets.
Blowing off the old dust. Yeah, it's been a hot second since we've done an audio shop.
Yeah, because it's been 3 weeks, because the first weekend was Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second weekend was my mom's birthday, which
But your
conveniently
Mother's Day
comes the weekend after Mother's Day every year.
She should have planned better on that.
Well, she was the one that planned that one. And then what was it? I don't know the third week. You had something?
Yeah. I had had family visiting.
Oh right, your brother's.
Brother. Yeah, so it's just brother. How's it going, brother? Do you want to do a whole audio shop episode just as Hulk Hogan?
Probably not. It would be interesting, but
welcome back, brother. Listening to Chaka Khan. I don't know what else Hulk Hogan says.
I don't really think he has their slogan. That's their whole shtick. They have one thing they say.
I suppose they're not dense literary masterpieces.
What's the cream of the crop guy?
That's Macho Man Randy Savage.
Right.
The cream rises to the top. I'm in a predicament I'd rather not be in right now, but the cream will rise to the top.
Is wrestling even that big nowadays? I feel like it was a lot bigger.
I think there's still a sizable subset of people that watch it.
Maybe I just feel like it was bigger because when I was a kid, we would go over to other family members' house more often. And they had some, not young boys, they were probably about 10, 13, maybe even 14 and 15 when I was like 5 or 6. And they had a bunch of like wrestling stuff, and maybe that's why I always think of it as having been bigger, just because I knew people that were into it then.
I just think if you're into wrestling, you let other people know you're into wrestling. So if they're not in your like spheres of influence, then it doesn't really affect you at all.
True. I guess The Rock is a more recent wrestler.
Well, yeah, but it's not. He's like a movie star now. It's not really.
There was a period of gradual transition. He was in that wrestling episode of Star Trek Voyager.
He was the Scorpion King in the Mummy movie.
True. Well, he acted as the model for the Scorpion King.
He was the CGI model for the Scorpion King.
Yes.
Which was his first movie debut. Fun fact.
Very badly rendered.
Yeah, it's like in 2000. So CGI was still chugging along.
I mean, you say that, but there's been some pretty good visual effects Granted, not CGI. What else? I feel like he's in danger of becoming. I say a danger. Who did the Tooth Fairy? Who was that?
You're talking about
that shitty kids movie.
Oh, that was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh,
right?
It was. Okay, yeah, never mind. He's there.
You're thinking of The Pacifier, right?
I'm thinking that The Pacifier was awful. I blame.
That was Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I blame Schwarzenegger with Kindergarten.
It all comes back to Kindergarten Cop.
It's all his fault. If he hadn't have done that movie, we wouldn't have this shitty trend of macho men becoming babysitters.
It really is like its weird own like action subgenre.
It's so odd. And then there's that one that's coming out soon with
It's the guy who played Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. He's doing the exact same thing. Oh, I gotta look it up. I can't remember what that is.
Sam, they're just telling the universal story all cultures can relate to, that rough and tumble secret agent that through wacky circumstance has to be in charge of a 6 to 11-year-old boy and or girl, and they teach them how to be tough and fight bullies, but the child teaches them how to love. So,
it doesn't. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense.
And then they become a family.
It's Dave
Barista, right? Barasta. All right.
Bautista.
Yeah, Jackie Chan had those too.
Oh God, he did.
I think if you are a Hollywood tough guy, like there's some sort of like devil agreement that you have to make. That you have to make at least one The Pacifier-esque movie.
I mean, I'm not saying that necessarily it's a bad trend. I understand kids like seeing that, but it's just if they weren't so terrible. Like even with these huge actors and these huge budgets, they always feel like they're made on a shoestring budget.
Well, they are. And then they reap in maximum profit.
True.
It's a feature, not a bug.
And the one he's in is called My Spy.
My Spy, that's it.
Because it sounds like I Spy, the favorite game for kids. It's a PG-13 movie. What the fuck? Isn't this supposed to be for kids? Yeah.
Huh. Eventually we'll get to the hard R, the Pacifier movie.
Well, hold on. PG-13 implies they're allowed one use of the F word.
You think the kid drops it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Did you know they made The Tooth Fairy 2?
Yes.
But instead of having Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, it has Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
My favorite Hollywood.
I saw like one ad for that. And then, thankfully, never saw one again.
It was released direct to DVD.
Yeah, I believe it. What is Larry the Cable Guy doing these days? Waiting for Cars 4?
I mean, I guess waiting for the next Tooth Fairy movie.
Oh, Dave Bautista is going to be in Dune.
Oh,
I'm not sure how that's going to work.
I mean, he was really good in the new Blade Runner. It wasn't a super big part, but I think he played it very well.
I haven't seen that. I still need to
You
watch
should. It's an excellent movie.
I know. Everybody says it's great.
Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Dave Bautista, Jared Leto.
Let's see. Oh my God! Like 95 or at least 50% of the stuff Larry the Cable Guy's been in has been Cars.
Hey, the man has a niche. I can respect him for that.
Was the Tooth Fairy the last thing he was in? No, he's in Cars 3. That was the last thing he was in.
Without the tuh.
That's odd.
Well, I guess we'll never stop the Hollywood train from a chugging along.
No.
Huh? But I suppose we can start jumping to the actual album.
Yeah, stop
talking about the Pacifier.
All right, let's do the scene transition. Welcome back to the Audio Shop Podcast. We've been gone for almost a month.
Yeah,
but we're back.
3 weeks.
Well,
it's been a hot second.
Technically, it has been a month.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Because we did an episode. 1 week passed and we missed it. 2 weeks passed, we missed it. 3 weeks passed, we missed it. Now this is the end of the 4th week. So it's been a full month.
We've had a hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're back and here to review a review an album everyone's been asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Truly the cultural zeitgeist of this generation.
What You Gonna Do For Me by Chaka Khan.
Chaka Khan.
From everybody's favorite movie, The Road to El Dorado. If you remember, he played the character who controlled the Jaguar, Chaka Khan. He was the main antagonist. He led the conquistadors, or tried to lead the conquistadors to El Dorado, and was most likely put to death.
No, I'm pretty sure that was that's just a different Khan. I think this Chaka Khan is a African American woman who is an R&B singer.
I'm not saying Chaka Khan, Cooper. I'm saying Chaka Khan.
Oh, Chaka Khan. and his famous song, "What You Gonna Do For Me."
Exactly.
Crazy coincidence.
Yeah, very, very odd coincidence.
But yeah, Chaka Khan is we're going to be talking about her. She's a bit of an R&B, funk, soul, jazz kind of singer. She has a lot of her fingers in those kind of roots. She was born as, I believe it's pronounced Yvette. How do you pronounce Yvette?
I believe so.
Marie Stevens, born in 1953. And she's had a long career spanning like 5 decades since she started in like the 1970s. And her most recent album came out like 2019. So wow. She's still going strong well into her 60s.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is one of her earlier albums. This one came out in 1981. So she would be in her 20s. But like I said, she's famous for releasing a myriad of albums. I think she's released like 13 solo albums, and then also 9 additional albums with an R&B group called Rufus. She's known for her vocals, and it was known as the Queen of Funk during her time. And she's won like 10 Grammys, has sold like 70 million records. So not exactly an indie gem. She was pretty big in the funk scene, in the R&B scene. She's had 3 gold singles, 3 gold albums, and 1 platinum album. So she is I suppose, what would be the term for someone who's very well versed in a genre?
Master.
The master of her craft. Yeah. Yes. And we'll be reviewing her, like I said, her 1981 album, "What You Gonna Do For Me," which is her 3rd solo album. So by now she's this is starting to she's kind of in her groove. It was certified gold with 4 lead singles, and it features several covers. It's kind of one of its selling points that we'll get into later. And a little interesting fact I read about it. It's not really pertinent to the album, but I thought it was interesting. Was for reasons unknown. This is what it was good as. So unknown reasons. It has been re-released in CD form, but only in Europe and Japan.
There's something, I've yet to get to the bottom of this, but there's something with Japan and music.
I actually did read about this. It's pretty interesting because Japanese like physical media with music is like way priced up compared to music produced abroad. So it's actually cheaper in a lot of cases in Japan to just like order a CD from America than to buy one at a store in Japan. That's so to make up for that, Japanese releases have like an extra song or a bonus track, right?
Yeah, there's
to incentivize people buying
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, to incentivize people buying locally instead of buying it abroad. Now, why it's so much more expensive? I'm not sure. I'm sure it has something to do with like producing it there or like shipping or something. But that's the reason, apparently.
There's got to be some sort of law. That's because there's no reason it should cost more there than. I mean, what was it? I was at the store the other day, and there was DVDs for whatever that new Pixar movie is, and it was $30. I was like, why would anyone want to buy that for $30? It's I guess we're moving on from the physical medium age.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think CDs definitely are going the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah. Vinyls are on the up and up, though. Invest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because if you're going to buy physical, why would you buy a CD when you can buy vinyl for slightly more expensive? And it's like, looks better, it's cooler.
Yeah.
Sounds better.
Well, yeah. CDs certainly do not have that cool factor. Let me just pop in a CD.
Pop my CD.
Your 7-disc player rotates to the next disc.
Pop a Chaka Khan. Let me just pop on some Chaka Khan for you, baby.
Oh, wait, wrong disc. Smack it. Make it rotate again. All right, well, jump into the first track then, if you're ready, Coop.
Yeah, we can go right into it. We can go into track number 1, We Can Work It Out. And you might be thinking to yourself, We Can Work It Out. Didn't the Beatles have a song named that?
Yes.
You'd be correct, because this is a cover of that Beatles song, which I was not expecting right off the bat.
It really screwed with me. I was like, my brain kept doing, like, it would know what was coming next, but then she wouldn't do it. She didn't do the same note progression that the Beatles did. So the whole time, it was like, this sounds right, but still very wrong.
Yeah, it's an interesting cover because, I mean, We Can Work It Out is decidedly not like a R&B funk song, right?
Yes.
But Chaka Khan's kind of morphed it into that, put our own spin on it to say. So it's kind of a foot in both worlds, which leads to this kind of weird chimera of a sound that it's like kind of lands on sounding almost kind of like a Stevie Wonder ripoff.
A little
more
bit.
than anything.
A little bit, yeah. I can see where you're coming from.
But it's a really interesting move that she opened her album with this.
Yeah, I mean, I go straight into it with the funk, as you would expect. I did notice it kind of did a bit more of that straddling than I anticipated, because it stayed away from that stereotypical funk bass that they approach later in the album. I will say, throughout the entire album, there's a separate guitar line for each ear. And I am so glad that is a trend that is dead and rotting in the ground. Because it is.
You're very sensitive about your ears receiving the same amount of sound.
Well, I'm wondering if it's just so drawn out on this because it was the Beatles, and they are one of the worst offenders for that.
They really did like their stereo sound.
And I don't understand. It doesn't sound good, you know? Maybe through speakers, not through headphones.
I mean, through speakers, it sounds fine.
Yeah.
Obviously, headphones were a little less prevalent back in the day than they are now, which is now like the main way people listen to music, which is probably why stereo sound like that is not as popular.
Because it hurts. At least for me.
Which I can't really hold against the Beatles. Like, this was planned to be played through a record player, right? Sorry, they didn't future-proof their sound for 60 years.
Nope.
I'm going to email Paul McCartney and give him what for. Though they did re-release every song for the Beatles in mono. So I guess they did fix it in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing to kick off of. I'm not a fan of it. I've never been a fan of covers for the most part, unless it's like a very clear improvement over the original song, because I always feel like it kind of lives in the original song's shadow. It's kind of like eating a meal that you like your mom's cooked it like 1,000 times, and someone else does the recipe. And it's like kind of similar, but like it being different, it's kind of off-putting.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have something completely new.
I will say, I had a bit more positive spin on it because I didn't connect the dots until near the end. I was like, okay, this is kind of odd, but it's. I feel like it's an all right opener. And then at the end, I'm like, wait, that was a Beatles song.
It really is masked. Like, besides like the lyrics are obviously word for word. Instrumentation, I probably would barely be able to identify it as We Could Work It Out.
Yeah. The funk instrumentation really covers up the fact that it's a Beatles song.
And Khan's vocal delivery is very impassioned. I will say that throughout the album, Chaka Khan is she gives it her all. She goes full force in most of these songs
all the time,
such as in this one. So definitely doesn't have the low-key vibe that We Can Work It Out originally had with the Beatles. This one's a lot more energetic.
Jump into track number 2 then.
The title track, What You Gonna Do For Me. So we're just knocking them all. We got the cover out of the way. We got the title track out of the way. Really front loading this, and this one obviously is your first real Chaka Khan song, since it's
Yeah.
not a cover. It's got a very almost summer pop vibe to it. I kind of noticed this very plucky bass line pairing underneath Khan's delivery.
I thought it was
With
more
like
of a fall pop.
maybe an autumn pop.
Come on, we're in America. It's fall pop.
I mean, yeah, I just got that very funky, dreamy vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
A very easy listening vibe. Where it's got that 80s cross section of funk and disco and electronica. That's very, I wouldn't say like exclusive to the 80s, but basically characterizes it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like you can listen to the song and be like, this was probably written in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
And you'd be pretty close.
A very interesting combination of synth and harp sounds kind of throughout. Very much more use of synthesizer than I was initially intending, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Or
it's
expecting rather.
Like I said, this was 81, so I think this is really when like electronica itself was really coming into the mainstream, because what?
Mm-hmm.
Yellow's first album was like 70 something, 74.
I think it was earlier than that.
Oh no, it's 69,
yeah.
Right? 71. Okay.
And even then, they weren't electronic. It was recorded in 70.
It was more orchestral than.
Yeah, it was much more orchestra than electric in those days. So.
Yeah, but I really like the instrumentation on this song. There's this part at like around 2:40, so the breakdown of the song,
mm-hmm.
where there's like this really kind of lush sax instrumentation breakdown, and Khan has this like really infectious kind of like vocal inflections, very theatrical delivery throughout.
Mm-hmm. Very theatrical, but not overdone, because there was a lot of instrumental depth in this song. Looking past the split ear audio, of course, kind of with the layers of the electronic and big band, but even with her like all-out performance, it was mixed extremely well. Like she is the forefront, like that she's what you want, she's the thing that she wants you to listen to, but it's mixed in a way where it's not overpowering. You can still get all the impact from the layers underneath, which was very nice to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with a voice as distinctive as Chaka Khan's, and with like this pretty layered instrumentation. I mean, this was like her. I mean, not even counting like the 3 albums she'd already done with Rufus. This is her 3rd album, so yeah. Obviously, she's got a little down pat. I'm sure she had a lot of audio engineers helping her as well.
True. I mean, you say that, but we've listened to some later albums from people that start to lose mixing ability.
They played a little too fast and loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has that nice 80s sheen on it. That keeps things pretty well balanced, which is basically a necessity for these kind of songs.
Especially with the number of instruments they got going on. Jump into track number 3 then, if you're ready, Coop.
We can. Track number 3 is I Know You, I Live You.
And that is not a typo.
No. She lives you. Which I guess is like saying like she's like her life, so to speak. This one has starts off again with that kind of funky underbeat, with this hooky as hell bass line, along with the main chorus. And this one's a little more low key, where Khan's vocals are she kind of fluctuates between these very theatrical like funk deliveries and like these little more laid back, sultry R&B deliveries, and that's where she has on this one a bit more.
Yeah, right at the beginning, it brings in trumpets as well, which I thought was a nice addition to the kind of sound that has been building throughout the album. Even if this one is a bit more laid back than the other two.
Yeah, there's a nice undercurrent of brass throughout this album.
Mm-hmm. There's a weird. Did you pick up on that weird clap sound effect?
I did.
It's like a
obviously
reversed clap.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what they were doing to achieve that effect. Obviously, it wasn't just someone clapping into a microphone. It was like a vocal effect.
Clap. It, like I think I understand what they were going for, or what she was going for with that, but it just felt a little odd. Because there was already a lot going on. It's so dense. There's so much going on. It just felt like an unneeded garnish.
Chaka Khan is a funkier character than we've ever had before. No, but yeah, I mean, I guess there's a case to say that some, especially 80s funk, has a tendency to sometimes be overproduced.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a thing as having too much, right?
Yeah.
Too much toppings on the burrito will make it spill.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think she ever goes off that cliff on this album, at least. But there are points like this where maybe letting it breathe a little bit more, or maybe removing a couple unnecessary flourishes, like you said, could make the song breathe a little bit more.
Overall, the burrito is perfect, but there was a couple of pockets of only lettuce, which kind of were
weird. You get that crunch, like there was no beef in that.
I don't even think there was sauce. It was just lettuce.
Just iceberg lettuce. And I think it also had a pretty good breakdown on this song as well. It almost gave me like a Earth, Wind, and Fire feel. Which I guess makes...
I don't know. It works. I just kind of wish there was a bit more to it, you know? It provides some nice good spacing before the comeback, but it felt just a little bare for what's been going on so far. I would have liked to see a little bit of a solo in there or something, maybe a little bit of bass solo to keep it more low key, since that was, you know, the feel they were targeting. It just felt a little too, you know, flat compared to everything else going on.
Yeah, I Know You Ought to Live You feels... It feels like a song in an album it's not particularly memorable. It's not like a bad song, but it's like a song, which is interesting since it was one of the lead singles. But it definitely feels like the less popular sibling of What You're Gonna Do.
Yeah.
For me, it just doesn't feel like... Oh, sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead. You were talking.
I was gonna say it just doesn't feel like it does anything particularly better or different than the song before it, which makes it feel a bit redundant.
Yeah, I mean, not to say it's a bad song, just there's a couple of spots already where it's like, well, we've seen this, why didn't you do something like that here, you know? But it's still a very good song.
Completely listenable.
This is a very, very strong start to an album.
Yeah. And with that, I think we can move on to the next song, which is track number 4, Any Old Sunday.
Easy on a Sun... Oh, wait, wrong song.
Now, this is also a cover. I'm not sure if you knew this one, Sam. It wasn't a song that I recognized before, but it was a song written by the McCraes. Nope. McCraes. From an album that was released literally a year before this one.
That's kind of
so it's a cover of a year-old song.
Which means she started doing the cover probably like 6 months after it came out.
Yeah, it must have been. Which I think is pretty funny.
That's really weird. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I was kind of perplexed when I saw that, because I'm like, because usually there's at least like covering the Beatles in the 80s makes sense, right? They came out like 20 years before.
Yeah.
This one's like still hot out of the oven. But you know, I think it's I prefer this cover a lot more to We Can Work It Out. Maybe just because I was not familiar with the original song.
Probably.
Probably no one is, because this one probably completely eclipsed it immediately. After
that's gotta kind of suck.
That they were immediately over eclipsed by Chaka Khan. But this one definitely does have that kind of Sunday morning vibe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
With this really groovy guitar hook that complements Khan's voice, and this just extremely groovy head bobbing chorus on Any Old Sunday. No, it's a snapping song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did notice that this one felt very different than the other songs, even than the other cover, with a much higher focus on her vocals themselves. And I up until about 2:20, you know, I was like, I like the backing track, but it's very simplified. You know, there's not many layers. There's just kind of the same thing's happening over and over. Around 220, a few instruments come in for like half a second and then drop back out, and I would have liked them to stick around longer. But then it drops right into that trumpet solo.
Ooh, that like kind of muted trumpet solo?
Yeah, which is exactly what it needed. I wish it should have come a little bit sooner, I think. It was the instrumental was getting a bit stale, but it did good to drive it to the end of the song.
Oh yeah, they added that kind of extra oomph. Mm-hmm. So I guess good to the McRae's for adding a trumpet solo in their song. I'm not sure if that's in the original, but also I was just looking at their discography. Mm-hmm. I just think it's funny. They released like 5 albums in the 70s and 80s, and basically none of them charted. But I thought it was funny because their last album was in 1982. And then they released their last album was in 2016, and it was a Christmas album. Huh. Well, they released an album like 40 years later, and it's a Christmas album. I just think that's funny.
How many are original members, or is it just one guy that's like, you know what, I'm going to cash in on this old band?
I do not know. It doesn't say anything about it.
I find that. I imagine then the reason they were so quick to agree to a cover song of this was because they knew they would make more money off of licensing the cover than off of the actual album that they had just released, probably.
Well, hey, I guess that worked for them.
Yeah, to each their own.
I think it's one of the better songs on the album.
Jump to track number 5, then.
Yes, track number 5. We got each other. Huh? So this one has kind of the distinction of having kind of this like male vocalist going alongside with Chaka Khan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried to find you.
I wasn't too sure about how I felt for the duet.
I'm not going to say it's like bad, but I think you need like a very specific vocal delivery to like duet with Chaka Khan. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite sure if this guy he did a fine job. I'm not sure if it added too much to it. I tried to find who sung on this one, but I couldn't. But like he does a fine job, but they kind of like are like paired side by side.
Yeah, they're a bit too similar,
which I think muddies the sound a bit.
Yeah. But I will say the bass in this one is probably one of the strongest in the album so far.
This one's actually got a pretty killer bass line.
Really drives it.
And that's on an album that I think has solid bass all around. Mm-hmm. So I will say at around like the 130 mark, there's like this really sweet like synth breakdown, and Chaka Khan just kind of breaks out without the male vocalist just on her own.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's like the super smooth transition. It only lasts like 30 seconds, and I think it's better than the rest of the song, but that little like nugget's so pure.
I agree. I will say it felt like it was getting repetitive, but there was nothing for my brain to latch onto that was as a reference point, because the bass was just so forceful. And I will say the last minute and a half, or the last minute, you could have cut that down. It was just them singing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, it's basically they just repeat the first half again,
and then you get a half minute of fade as well on a 4-minute song.
Yeah, this song feels like it maybe you think that with having another vocalist you could do something a little more interesting with that. Mm-hmm. Basically he's just on the chorus and just kind of mirrors Chaka Khan's vocals, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't think they make very good use of him. So a little wasted potential on this song.
Well, it's certainly not a bad song. But
no.
Jump to track number 6, then, if you're ready.
Okay, track number, I think, is a much more interesting song. Is "And the Melody Still Lingers" on "Night in Tunisia." So this is the third and final cover on the album, and this is, I think, one of the most interesting one out of all of them. It's basically a cover of a musical composition of a jazz standard by Dizzy Gillespie. I'm probably saying that wrong. He played with the Benny Carter band. Mm-hmm. So basically, this is a jazz standard that she kind of vocalized over.
I thought I
written in like the 1940s.
Yeah.
So I think this is definitely one of the most interesting spin. And it's basically this really funky jazz and fusion song. That it's the longest song of the album too, at 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it goes some pretty interesting places.
Yeah, I gotta say, right at the beginning, I was hoping for some freeform jazz there. They were spooling up for it, but then it settled into that funky synth, and I was like, okay, I can vibe with this too.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting mix of genres. Like jazz and funk, I don't have ever been like too separated, but this is probably like one of the clearest examples of them like coming together on a song.
Yeah.
And I think Khan does a really good spin on it. Like her vocal delivery on this is very, I don't know, plays very well with this underlying synth that basically like rides throughout the entire song.
Mm-hmm.
As well, she has like this ba 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 breakdown vocally. Yeah, I really dig her vocal stylings on this song.
Kind of smoking lounge-esque.
Yeah. I think that just comes from the jazz basis that it's based on.
Yeah. And there was that solo right near the beginning where I don't know what the heck the instrument was, but it was amazing. It goes on for quite a long time, but I could listen to it for probably the whole song.
And then it also has like at the 145 mark, this kind of like electro synth breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
The song's just kind of full of like these little solo gems that keep it nice and fresh.
Jazz is, yeah.
Yeah. It's like she's like transforming jazz into like this. It's like funky jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Gives it a very unique feel.
There was,
and it's honestly.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying that's something I think you can look for, and like it's a very transformative cover.
Mm-hmm. For sure. There was a very slight. It was. I'm trying to remember where. I think it was like 3/4 of the way through, or somewhere around there. She has a quite high-pitched backing that she sings, which was a little grating with everything that was going on, but it disappeared almost as soon as it popped in. Thankfully, it was just a bit too much going.
Yeah,
on.
She goes off a little bit near the end of the song. But I think it kind of makes up for it because it doesn't last super long, and then it immediately goes into another breakdown.
Yeah,
electro breakdown. So this song really is honestly a lot more instrumental than basically any other song on this album.
Oh yeah, just right at the end where you're starting to get it's been quite a few minutes of listening to her, and you're like, all right, I need a break. Then the trumpet comes in as the main line for like the last minute, and that was amazing. It's
super smooth. Yeah. The instrumentation on this song is crazy. I mean, I guess it's a jazz standard, so it should be, but
yeah.
I think the way Chaka Khan was able to transform that, I think really made for a very synergistic experience.
For sure. Oh, I love me some jazz.
You like jazz?
You like jazz?
And that leads us
track number 7 then.
Yeah, the next one, Night Moods.
Moods.
Moods. As the song title kind of suggests, it's a little more of a moody, lovey-dovey type song.
Yeah, it feels much more laid back than previous tracks. It's got that bit of soft flute, some gentle piano, some quiet bass. I really like the flute in this one. The flautist.
Oh yeah, it's like this jazz flute.
Yeah, very good
jazz
flautist.
Jazz flautist.
I will say the drums in this one were just on the edge of being a bit too much. I think those need to be dialed back just a little bit.
I mean, they were a bit cutting, but I think it's just because the song's so much, I think comparatively it's a lot more lean in terms of instrumentation.
Oh, yeah.
So the percussion cuts through a little more, because it doesn't have like all these layers over it.
Yeah, and I will say it did feel, I'm gonna say it did feel repetitive.
Oh, there it is.
But I kind of just let myself get sucked into the instrumental line, so it didn't kind of bother me as much.
Yeah, it's like a sunset driving song, you know.
Exactly. Well, I think it's more of a sit on your porch and watch the sunset kind of thing. Might be a bit too calming for a drive.
might sleep a little bit.
Yeah. It's like my grandpappy always used to say, "I want to go out sleeping, unlike the people screaming in his car."
Oof. Yeah, okay. This is a good song to fall asleep to if I had to.
Yeah.
Plus, it's got good use of like a little bit of strings in there, and it maintains a very consistent mood.
I'm pretty sure I heard a glockenspiel at the end there.
You think so?
I am fairly certain it was high in Plinky.
They managed to sneak it in.
Yeah. Might need a few more listens to properly determine, but it definitely wasn't chimes. I can tell if it's chimes. I think it was a glockenspiel.
It was subtle. And then the song has a fairly long fade outro.
Yeah.
But like, given the general aesthetic of the song, I think it kind of works with it.
Mm-hmm. Not nearly as jarring as some of the other songs.
No, not at all. That is kind of jarring going into the next song, which is decidedly less moody.
Jump into track number 8. Heed the Warning.
Heed the Warning, which we're back to the funk.
The fast funk.
Fast funk.
I was really getting some, and I've prefaced this, I'm pretty sure 95% of the sayings we use on here are completely made up. Like, I don't know if these are real, but I'm getting some real early electro-funk vibes from this one.
No, yeah, this is definitely... it's not like electronic in the way like some of the other songs have been. Like, this is a very synth-driven song.
Yeah.
It's basically this trappings of funk with a synth like basis.
Yeah, it's got that pulsing synth in the background.
Pulsing synth. Maybe like the early predecessor of what like club music became.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Like the primordial ooze from which it crawled from.
Because I say pulsing synth, but that gives it a bit more of a, guttural feel. It's very fast and rapid changing notes. I don't know what single word you would use to. I said pulsing.
Yeah, it's not like a deep synth. It's like a lighter synth, but it's still like the drive.
But it's you hold down a key on the keyboard and it just goes between a bunch of notes, kind of thing. Otherwise, you got Beethoven on the synth. I don't think that's the case.
No. I think she has been taking funk to some interesting places, at least.
Yeah.
Funk's always been a genre for me that can get pretty old pretty fast. It just kind of becomes like disco hell. But I think Chaka Khan's been keeping the general genre intact while also, playing around with it a little bit at least.
Avoiding the stereotypes.
Yes. Overall, though, besides kind of the use of synth heavier on this song, I didn't have too much to say about it.
Yeah, I didn't either. It was there was that fade out that took a lot of. I felt like that fade was a bit too extreme because it took so much of the edge, which the song didn't really have a lot to begin with. It just kind of sucked all the energy out right at the end. Yeah,
which worked on like night moods since it was kind of already low energy. Mm-hmm. But this one, it's a little more abrupt.
A bit too much of a drop off, I think.
Yeah. Though it does lead into our next track.
Track number 9.
Which is track number 9.
He Said.
Father, He Said. Which is probably the clearest song on this album that has like a message.
Yeah.
Obviously,
sure.
like the lyrics on this album haven't been particularly, revolutionary. It's either a cover or like, I love you or, treat me right or that kind of thing. This one's more of like it kind of seems like a reflection on like her relationship with her father, which I think is a pretty interesting premise for a song at least.
Yeah, it caught me off guard a little bit, but I'm much more of an instrumentalist than a vocal analyst most of the time. But so I noticed the good use of piano and strings, which have been absent on the album for a while. And I think there was something in this one that it just felt hollow, and I'm not sure why.
I kind of got that on the chorus as well. Like it was missing like some sort of instrumentation line.
I don't know if I think it might have either been the bass or something else in the background, but it feels like it's missing a layer.
Yeah, I sort of got that as well. I can't really identify it either. Maybe it's because the bass line on this one is a bit like lacking compared to the other songs.
Yeah, it's much
so maybe
more,
it's just a case of you don't know what you're missing until you miss it.
Yeah, it's much more up in the mix where it's still trying to achieve that funk vibe, if you will, without using a lot of bass, which doesn't really work. Especially when the whole album to this point has been utilizing bass, kind of pulling back on that bass makes it a bit hollow. I will say
Yeah.
it does have a very nice synth breakdown, though, that kind of helps change the scenery before it switches to the next verse where she's on a train or something.
But yeah, no. So overall, this is a pretty song for me.
Yeah, I definitely felt like it was lacking.
Certainly, the B side through and through.
Yeah, which was really sad because up until we got so far, we got to 8, and I'm like, oh yeah, no B-side album, and then we get to 9, and it's like, oh, okay, that wasn't very good, and then we get to track number 10, if you're ready, Coop.
Yeah, let's move right on to it.
Fate. And This is when I realized that there is a B-side to the album.
Yeah, which, I mean, the quality of the album definitely drops off a little bit near the end. But I think it's mostly because of these 2 songs.
Yeah. And it's still quite strong, but I like to only compare the songs to the album itself, comparing this album to, say, I don't know, Imagine Dragons Origins. This would be, diamond-plated piece of gold. The whole thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any unlistenable songs on this album, or even, bad songs. But I think this is the part where it's like, this is like, I don't want to say filler, but certainly not like the grade A material.
Right.
Kind of, when Subway says their chicken's 80% chicken.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's the other 20%?
Or where you go and get the, you're like, oh, can I get some ham? And sure, they pull it out, and as they lift it up through the light, you can see that there's just rainbows of colors of oil on it. I'm like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that ham?
That's not quite, something's not right here.
Something's not quite right here.
Yeah, but that leads us to track number 10, which is really the final track on the album.
Yeah.
Which is, there is a little reprise at the end, and that is Fate.
It's got some good funky bass coming back. This is when I kind of realized that Father, he said, was missing that bass. When the bass started up in this song, I'm like, there was no bass.
There it is.
Yeah, at least not as noticeable, not as ever present. And this is kind of more the stereotypical funk bass in this one as well.
Yeah, I think this one falls a little bit too hard to some disco trappings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there wasn't anything unlistenable about it, but
no.
the chorus especially, I just didn't care for. The vocals were a bit sharp.
Yeah, they were much more dominant with a pretty simple backing track, which was to its detriment.
I mean, I appreciate the message of her reaffirming herself in her womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's fate that I'm a woman. I'll own that. But it's kind of done over a so-so song.
Yeah, you can have a good message with a bad song.
Yeah. Though I will say, the 145 mark, there's a pretty solid guitar breakdown, which is basically the only one in this album. So it's kind of fun to have that in.
Yeah.
Even this late in this album, but it was only 20 seconds, and I don't think it was enough to make this song really worth the listen through.
Yeah, 20 seconds of a 3-minute song, I think it was 3.5.
Yeah.
Well, we can jump to the final track number 11, if you're ready, Coop.
Yeah, which really is it's "I Know You, I Live You," the reprise, which I think is I thought it was an interesting little way to wrap up the album.
Who doesn't love the reprise?
Yeah, it's basically a very musical-esque musical reprise. Yeah, like you'd see in a musical, or just redoes the chorus of "I Love You, I Live You" to help wrap up the album.
Because everybody knows that the reprise of "And I Saw Her Face" from the Shrek album was the better version of the song.
It's true.
Sung by Eddie Murphy.
Known for his vocal stylings.
Uh-huh.
But it's also got its own little subtle twists on it. The beginning's a very stripped back synthy version of "I Love You, I Live You" before it has this big kind of grandiose final chorus of it. I think it's just a neat way to end an album.
I disagree with the 20-second fade out, though, on a 1:20 song. That was a bit much.
Yeah, but I kind of, the way I kind of thought it was would I rather have this or would I rather have Fate as the last song? I'm I'd rather have this.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably why she
So yeah, I think it's overall a good way she could have ended her album, given the current album order.
Yeah. Well, that's the last track. So Cooper, what would you say your favorite track of the album would be.
Yeah, I think there's a number of tracks on this album that are pretty good. What You're Gonna Do for Me, I think, is just a classic funky R&B zinger. And Any Old Sunday, I think, is a very laid back groove song. Mm-hmm. But I think I'll actually have to go with And the Melody Still Lingers On, Night in Tunisia. It's definitely the best of all the covers, and I think it's the best song on this album. Just kind of the mixture of the jazz and funk standards. Mm-hmm. I think make for a really interesting sound. Kind of highlight Chaka Khan's strengths in instrumentation and her vocal delivery. Yeah. In terms of least favorite, I think there's basically 3 contenders. Father Said and Fate are just kind of so bleh. I don't really care for them. Mm-hmm. I'll probably have to go with We Can Work It Out, just because that one was the only one that actively a little bit annoyed me. I think that's mostly just because I'm sure it's really hard to do. I just don't think it was a very successful cover, because Beatles songs are so ambiguous, so well known that kind of putting a funk spin on it kind of just was. It was like deja vu, or like something's not right here.
Yeah.
That was a little off-putting to me. It was a fine cover, I suppose, but I just didn't care for it.
Yeah. I'll have to disagree with you on that. Once I got past the feeling of why isn't she singing the notes I'm expecting her to sing, I enjoyed it thoroughly as an opening song. For my favorite, however, I'm going to have to agree and go with And the Melody Still Lingers On, Night in Tunisia, because I just love jazz. So it was such a perfect marrying of jazz and funk that it won me over. As for worst, I'm going to have to go with Father, He Said. Just that hollow feeling that it gave me kind of made me disinterested in the song, and additionally trying to put more focus on the lyrics when that hasn't been the case throughout the whole album. I'm not to say that artists can't do this, but I'm not a huge fan of when I get preached to through music. So it just, that hollow feeling, I think, was the worst part of it. That was the only song on the album where I was like, this isn't right. There's like a whole section of the song missing. Whereas other ones, it's like, yeah, that was good. I feel like if they had done this like they did in previous song, it could have been better though. But this was the only one that was completely lacking, I feel.
Oh, no. I totally agree. Father You Said wasn't my favorite either. That's for sure.
But what would you rank it? I guess we got to do the whole ranking system.
It's been a month. It's worth reiterating.
Do we
just to remind ourselves as well?
Do we want to do rock, paper, scissors for who gets to? All right, actually, I got a coin here. Let's flip a coin.
Okay. I'm calling heads.
You call heads? I got to tell you what's on the coin, because I think it's a Hearthstone coin. Heads is 1, and then tails is the mana, extra mana. So if you win, you can read it, but I'll get extra mana for turn 2.
That makes sense. Cast your spell.
And you win.
All right, so our ranking system, as you can see on the left side of the screen, it's basically, since me and Sam know so much about cars, real car hogs, as we call ourselves, audio
we
pigs.
have a combined about 30 minutes of car experience, right? I've looked at
32.
32
I walked outside next to my car today.
Okay.
So we have a kind of car-themed rating system, with Showroom being the tip top, the best of the best. This is something that you have to listen to, that you'll just annoy people. Cream of the crop. Brother. This is the Macho Man Randy Savage ratings, right? You just got to see it. While Scrapyard is bottom of the barrel. Just bad, gross, get it away from me.
This is stuff video of Hulk Hogan saying the N-word.
Yes, this is bad. This is stuff that'll actively make you like music less. And then we kind of go in between. We might give it like a high or a low, give ourselves a little wiggle room. So, Sam, what would you say was your rating for this album?
Well, Cooper, I'm going to stall for time as I scroll down and type in my answer before I pop it up. I am going to give this one a like new.
Okay.
It was very good in my opinion. Granted, I'm a sucker for this kind of style of music, but it was something I wasn't expecting to like as much when you initially pitched it to me. Granted, I don't know if I've ever sat down and really listened to a whole funk album. I've listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire, but they're kind of in a weird spot with funk. But this was, for coming at it from this angle, very pleasant. I had a good time the whole time. Usually, I don't want to say usually, but sometimes with Cooper recommended albums, when I sit down to listen, it takes longer than it feels like it does.
We have different tastes overall, I'd say.
Sometimes, if I suggest an album that I've always liked, it's like, album's already over. Sometimes with Cooper's albums, that was 45 minutes. I feel like I've been here for 2 days. But yeah,
some are growers.
Yeah. Some of them grow on you, but this one is good out the gate. Very, very strong funk and not stereotypical funk, I think, which was the big drawing point for me. Very kind of experimental, almost taking jazz inspiration into funk.
Yes, and I think it paid off in basically all the cases that happened.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. So I was kind of torn. I was kind of torn between A Fixer Upper and Like New. Because like I said, the back half of the album has a couple duds in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't care for the opener at all. And that's like a third of the album. But also, like, its high points are really high. And even the songs I don't care for are completely listenable. Like, if you play this in the background, I'd be like, oh, what's this?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I'd say I got more out of it than A Fixer Upper might entail. So I'd probably give it like a low Like New.
Okay.
Where there's definitely some weaker points of the album, but I walked away from this with a new appreciation to Chaka Khan, being like, you know what, I dig her stuff, I dig her sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've never been a big disco fan at all,
mm-hmm.
And this kind of helped at least make me appreciate the genre a little bit more.
That's good.
I grew as a person.
Next week we can we can tackle your fear of the rockabilly genre.
Well, maybe let's give that it has to be a pretty good rockabilly album for me to admit that I like any part of it.
All right. Well, that is the end of What You Gonna Do For Me by Chaka Khan, not Chaka Khan. Yeah, thanks for listening. Now we're gonna move on to the spare tire segment, which is our little extra wheel in the back. What we've been listening to on the side, or as the main thing, because it's been a month, and I have not been listening to this album for a month, even though we planned it right after the last one.
No, it's a great album, but
I'll tell you what I have been listening to for about a month, though.
Now hit me with it.
Van Halen.
Oh,
I've been on a real classic rock kick. I've not really listened to a ton of classic rock recently with the whole, stay at home stuff. Whenever I'm at home, I'm more of a watcher. I like to have something to watch, even if I'm not directly looking at it, having like a live stream on or something along those lines. I don't know. It just feels more natural than music sometimes, and especially since I don't really have a good speaker here at home. And I have a very limited selection of vinyl albums. My phone speaker usually doesn't cut it for music, but I got the urge when I was doing some chores the other day to throw on some Hot for Teacher, and holy crap, that's been stuck in my head for the past month. And from there, I've just branched off and started doing all the classic rock. Let me pull up the station I've been listening to on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a hodgepodge of classic rock all over the place. And then from the Van Halen Hot for Teacher playlist, I just went to rock classics. So I was listening to Fleetwood Mac, Cream, Layla with Derek and the Dominoes. I guess I was listening to quite a bit of what's his name? Crap. One whiskey, one shot, one beer.
Oh, what, the Bat to the Bone guy?
Yeah. Crap, I can't remember his name off the top of my head because it's
Bat to the Bone.
Is it Johnny Thorogood and the Destroyers? I think that's what his name is.
I don't listen to his stuff, so I wouldn't know.
Johnny. Let me just type Thorogood. George Thorogood and the Destroyers. listening to a lot of that, which is, I don't want to say is country.
It's definitely approaching.
But it's kind of like if hard rock and country had a baby, but country wasn't the father.
But it was raised by country.
But it was raised
like a stepfather.
Distantly. It's much more hard rock than country.
I mean, if you ever heard Bad to the Bone, then it's
just Bad to the Bone. But all his songs sound exactly like that. I just really like his voice. But yeah, that's what I've been listening to. What about you, Coop?
Nice hard rock, I appreciate that. Yeah, I was trying to basically this last month I've kind of been trying to challenge myself to go outside of my comfort zone genre wise. So I've been listening to some metal albums, which is a genre I basically usually don't ever touch. I went through the Tool discography.
They just had an album come out that I've been seeing a lot of people freaking out about.
Yeah, Fear Inoculum. I think that came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't listen to any of their stuff, so I just they had like 5 albums, so it wasn't too long to listen through all of them. Basically, as it was described to me, Tool is metal for smart people.
Okay.
Which sounds pretentious as hell.
Well, you've been reading more, haven't you?
I have been reading more. So I am a smart person now because I read books. No, but kidding aside, it's basically kind of like metal, but with like some math rock sensibilities thrown in there. So pretty intricate, like guitar work. It's not like screamo metal. It's a lot more like more low key metal.
Now, I hate to interject, but when you say math rock, I've heard that said before. But what does that entail exactly?
The idea of math rock, it's kind of like it gets its name from the fact that it's like songs with weird time signatures, like, not 3/4/4/4, but like 7/12, or so it's like math rock. That's the math. So basically, it's like intricate guitar work, kind of off kilter instrumentation. Overall, is kind of like its general gist. But yeah, so it was very interesting listening through Tool. It's like this alt metal experience, and I'm still not like gonna say I'm the crazy metal fan, but I'm glad I listened through it because it does have some interesting ideas that you don't find in like a lot of conventional, pop music or even hip hop and more zeitgeist music of this day and age. And I thought their debut album Undertow was pretty good. It's probably my favorite out of the bunch, even though I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion. At least according to their Reddit subreddit. And then also, something I recommend less, but also I still listen to, was if, like I said, I was trying to get into metal, I also listened to Primus, which, as described to me, was like, it's like if Tool was a hillbilly mountain man band.
Okay.
It's like this unholy amalgamation of like kind of countryish sensibilities mixed with metal. Their official genre is funk metal, which honestly describes it pretty aptly. It's a very tongue-in-cheek, almost groovy metal. So it's like got very metallic sounds, but like still a very definitive groove to it.
Okay.
It definitely not like something you can just throw on for grandma. It's a very grow on you kind of sound, but I've been listening to like 4 of their albums, and I think it's definitely worth a listen if you want to try something completely different. You may know the song. The only song I think you might recognize, Sam, is "John the Fisherman."
Not ringing any bells.
You might recognize it.
I'll have to look it up. Your vocalization of the guitar noises is beautiful, but I'm not sure it carries the same
it sounds
effect.
better when they do it. But yeah, it basically that song kind of encapsulates what they are. So I'm not sure if I could recommend it to anyone who's not like ready to dive into some really weird metal. But it's something I've been enjoying nonetheless.
Cooper?
Yeah.
Oh, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. No. But that was my spiel.
Oh, sounds good. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us for the Audio Shop podcast. Not sure what we're going to listen to next week, but it'll be something. We'll be here.
It will be something.
Probably. But anyway, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
See you later, shoppies.
See you later, shoppies. I didn't do the proper high pitch last time, so I had to, had to do that this time. See ya.